Welcome back to another video. Today we have an anime review of Kino's Journey. This isn't your traditional anime because it appears to fail in its characterization and plot development, but in reality, those aren't important. This is an anime which heavily focuses on philosophy. It's only 13 episodes long, and if you breeze through it, then you're gonna miss everything, I guarantee that. This is the story of Kino, a young traveler joined by her companion, the talking motorcycle Hermes. Nearly every episode, she's traveling to a different country where she stays for 3 days. Outside of her backstory episode, Kino is a very ambiguous character, often appearing to be an emotionless, neutral observer, and I would go as far as saying that she's really not a character at all, that her presence here is more symbolic, but that's just my take on it. And while I can't really tell you exactly what she is, I can tell you what she does. Kino asks questions. These questions are important because with each episode, we're greeted with a new circumstance, and these questions bring to light information about a country so that we can learn its history and its culture, and we learn enough about its civilians to get a basic understanding of who they are. Often we'll meet 2 or 3 civilians who represent opposing viewpoints. Kino proceeds to ask these civilians the same exact question, and it may seem monotonous at first, but if you look deeper, these questions and answers are significant because they highlight the themes of the episode. I enjoyed watching every episode of this because I could go through and think about the themes that are present. These themes range from being positive and negative, but they're never overly optimistic or pessimistic. I always felt like they accurately portrayed the truths of life. I often notice how Buddhist the series is as a whole because they often give you this message about the suffering of life and how to overcome it, and Kino herself will say things such as how all life forms are equal and she actively tries to avoid desire. I also think that Kino's traveling companion Hermes is another symbolic character. I think that he is the voice of the audience, but also he's there to make it so that Kino isn't really talking to herself, because that would be awkward. Kino's role is to ask questions to the world to uncover the truths of life, where Hermes' goal is to ask questions to Kino to uncover her thoughts on the matter, and also to ask the questions that the audience is thinking. I find it apparent that even though this series is heavily focusing on philosophy, it understands that it's telling a story and has to entertain its audience. So I notice in numerous situations that it goes the extra mile to try and entertain the audience. Say, for example, the countries themselves. One country will be themed after this medieval castle, the next country will be futuristic with robots. You don't really need to have this fantasy setting. You could tell these same stories and you could have these same messages with everyday life, but that would be kind of boring, and they realize that, so they go the extra mile and add these fantasy elements. Furthermore, because this is a story that's told from the perspective of Kino, they go the extra mile and give her a bit of backstory, and they give you a bit of exposition as to who she is, why she's on her journey, and also why she's so good with the gun as well, which leads me to another point where they go the extra mile, which is with its action. There are a few times where Kino will face danger because she's a traveler. She's actually a lot stronger than she looks, and she's capable of defending herself while just not overpowering her enemy, because that wouldn't be as enjoyable. When I watched Kino's Journey, I watched a single episode at a time. I tried not to think anything about what the themes might be until the episode is over, and then I sit back for about 10 to 15 minutes and contemplate everything that I saw in that episode, and then I gather my thoughts on what the themes were, and then I go talk to a friend who was also watching it around the same time as me. We would compare some of our findings. Half the times we had the same exact finding, the other half of the time our findings varied, and it was interesting to understand why. I think if you blow through Kino's Journey and marathon it, you're going to mistake the characters and plot for the cake itself instead of the icing. Just to give you an example of what you're going to find in Kino's Journey, let's take a look at episode 0. This isn't considered one of the 13 episodes, it's actually a standalone, so it's safe for me to talk about. This is an episode where Kino travels to this country that has this massive tower. She goes inside and she's asking people of all walks of life, what's with the tower? And everybody responds, all I do is make bricks. All I do is make mortar. All I do is this. All I do is that. They never directly answer her about the tower itself, which is kind of weird. So I was thinking that the people were pretty crazy, because this was actually the first episode of Kino's Journey that I watched. But then we see that there's this civilian who tracks Kino down inside of the inn that she's staying at. He's saying, I need you to take me with you. I cannot stand being here anymore. I do not want to die building this tower. And if I don't build it, they're going to sacrifice me to it, which really raised another flag, like, are these people crazy, or am I not seeing something here? When this tower falls, everybody around rejoices. I expected it to be because they were finally free of the task of having to build that tower every day, but no, they actually decided to rebuild it, which really confirmed the fact that they are pretty crazy, but that's actually their culture. They build a tower from generation to generation, and they were just excited because it fell in their generation, because the next tower they build will be the tower of their generation, basically. So this boy that followed Kino, he wanted him to take her with him. He just had this breakdown at that moment. He didn't want to do it anymore, and Kino said, if you don't like making the bricks for the tower, why don't you make the bricks a different color? Or why don't you make special engravings on the bricks? This advice echoed throughout the land because nobody thought about actually modifying the way that the tower looks, and on its surface it appears to be this very strange episode, but if you look at it through its symbolic meanings here, the tower itself would represent fate or life, and then Kino's advice to color the bricks or add the engravings to them is basically like saying, you can't change the hands you're given in life, but there are ways to express yourself, and there are ways that you can enjoy your life. This episode featured a very straightforward message, and it really set me up for everything in the series, but the first few episodes that you find in this anime are only going to contain one theme, but then eventually you're going to get to episodes which contain a few themes, and it's really interesting just watching them and trying to uncover what the messages are. Moving on to the presentation, Kino's Journey was a relaxing experience, despite how much attention I had invested when watching this. The art style itself, the characters were very simplistically drawn, but it actually works with what you're seeing. Plus the different countries, they greatly contrast from one another. Like I said earlier, you'll have the medieval themed country, and then you'll have this country that's set in the future, and there's all different types of countries that you find here. Two of them you won't find alike, so it was really enjoyable watching the series and seeing what it could come up with. The audio was very relaxing as well. I never skipped the opening or closing, not even once. The OST was very ambient, and the voice acting. Do not watch Kino's Journey with its English dub. Watch it with a subtitle. Translation is important, their emotions are important, and they kind of fail with the voice acting, in my opinion. Just watch it in Japanese. Because Kino's Journey isn't your traditional story, I really can't give this my traditional rating. I can only give you my enjoyment level. But because of the amount of interest that I had in this series, because they went the extra mile, and because this is a series that I can continue to rewatch for years to come, I give Kino's Journey a 9 out of 10 in enjoyment. This is an anime that when I was halfway through watching it, it was already part of my top 10 anime series, and that is something that rarely ever happens. And before I even finished watching the series, I went out and bought it on DVD. It was like 18 bucks. Totally worth it for me because I really love the series. If you're also big fans of Kino's Journey, there's a few one-shot episodes. There's a movie which is about the length of an episode, and then there's also the novel to it. I'm really interested in checking those out. I've seen a few of the one-shot episodes, and they were just as good as the episodes in the anime. So if you're a fan of anime where there's more to it than what you find on the surface, then Kino's Journey is a must-watch. And if you're a person who just skips to the end of the video to see my final score of something, it's probably not for you. Just saying. I'd like to give my special thanks to Matt Jarrell for requesting this video on Patreon. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Also check out my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for all your likes and comments, and also be sure to check out my anime review playlist and also my review of Paranoia Agent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.